and welcome to another one of our talks for this wonderful weekend that we're all here. All three of us here are part of Team Ardent Roleplay.
Yeah.
I am Shaun Sunday, the Community Manager, and we have Jade in QA as many other things, and Jacob in engagement and our in-house GM. Jade has also GM'd a bunch of our Cthulhu streams. Much to the chagrin of players who have had to deal with the spooky shenanigans. Today we are talking about storytelling and adding something new to our games. So, my first question for both of you is, tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do with Ardent and in general, so everyone can get to know us a little bit.
Oh boy.
Easy question, I say.
Yeah, easier question. This one's way too broad.
Tell us your life story.
Yeah, no, so the abbreviated version of my life story is that I've kind of just had I've been a natural storyteller. I come from a family of storytellers. My dad was a hobbyist poet. Someone like a distant cousin was he's a writer, and another distant cousin, she's a comedian. So we're kind of just natural storytellers. And then after trying to make 10 years of mixed martial arts work, I had a cardiorhythmic asyncope, so basically heart attack for those playing at home. Put a stop to my punching career, and then I put a start to my writing career. So I write, I QA, I do things, and I have a morbid fixation for the macabre, so I'm kind of attracted to a lot of dark themes, and that it tends to shine through in a lot of role-playing I do, so it's kind of why I'm a fan of Call of Cthulhu, which is unfortunately right down there, out of camera.
So that makes sense, and you know, as they say, the pen is mightier than the foot.
Sword.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but you don't use a sword.
Use the
that's what you think.
In the cage. In the
again, that's what you think.
I feel like that's definitely a hallmark of pretty much every game design I've ever met. That just like macabre, slightly darker, like penchants for things. Like adding, emotion to games is always, oh yes, let's add fear, darkness, and a little bit of death, and they'll have a great time. It's like, oh god, like people wandering in from the art department in game design, like being like, what do you guys want us to make again? Like this, it's gonna be great. Like,
yep, researching for horror stuff is like I've got plans to do a horror comedy coming up soon, and I'm gonna make it freaky but funny, and the research I'm gonna have to do for that. Like,
horror and comedy are the two hardest things to do. So I definitely say good luck to that. I guess.
They made Evil Dead, so
true.
That's true.
I feel like as writers, we're all probably on some kind of a watch list somewhere just from research.
Yeah, definitely a thing. I actually found that a lot with LARPing. I just kind of like research weird stuff and be like, oh yeah, like I'll find this out about this particular character, like the IOA, and be like, oh yeah, I'll have a reference to this kind of like in one of the games I'm running, and probably on a watch list somewhere. But
yeah, like. Yep. I bought this to figure out how it would fit on me, and it's like, I imagine I'm getting a lot of weird looks right now.
A little bit.
It's comfier than it looks, though.
I'll probably answer the question as well. So I'm Jacob, game designer, and much like Jade, I think I've been a storyteller pretty much my entire life. I remember writing stories for my friends in primary school around Pokemon, and I'd write them on a piece of paper, do a little drawing of Pokemon, and hand it to them. Be like, I made this for you, and they're like, thanks, man. I'm like, cool. But I don't really come from a hugely writer or even educational background with my family, but they love and support me anyway, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Kind of tried out, I wanted to, like when I was younger, to be a biochemist. When I realized I wasn't very good at math, I was like, I guess I'm good at art and good at computers, so I guess I'll do a little bit more of that. Always loved writing and all that kind of stuff, and I think I've been a GM for about 12 years now. 10 years now. It's about 10 years.
Yep. Yeah.
Just like since I kind of really properly moved out of home and kind of like started, coming to the city and playing lots of D&D, and pretty much played every kind of game, I think, at this point. But there's always room for more, I think, after so many years.
Yeah, and much the same here as well. Like, I started drawing at age 11, 12-ish, and, giving my little drawings to people, and started trying to workshop comics ideas at 14. And so I sort of come from more of a comics storytelling and, like, stories, prose and stuff background. I actually only started playing D&D in 2018. First ever time, started as DM with Robin and my buddy Phil, who had never played before either, so we all started together. And it's really interesting sort of reappropriating all of those skills in the way I process information for writing that into writing stuff for a game.
I'm just going to be like honest right here. Like, I've only ever played like probably 6 sessions of D&D, and it was the Lost Mines of Phandelver. I've never picked up D&D again.
You should play more D&D. It's super good.
No. Like, okay, if I want to play a war game, I'll play Warhammer. I won't play D&D though. You
should look at World of Darkness. Actually, World of Darkness is very much up your alley, Jade.
I've run World of Darkness before, and even then, it's got the same issue of like it's built by an engineer. I just want to tell a story.
True, I haven't run into that problem in my own games too much, funnily enough. Like, I see a lot of people making that comment about the war game thing, and I've always get confused by that myself, because in my experience I haven't run into that, and I think it's because of the way as a DM I approach combat, and we don't get too crunchy with the numbers, and like we play with the rolls and we move it through, but when I guide my players through, I focus more on what's happening in the combat scene more so than the combat itself, and usually gets resolved pretty quickly, and then we're on to the next part of the story.
Well, they talk about that a lot in game design. It's basically that the mechanics of any game frame what the experience of the game will actually end up being.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of go through an entire terse political intrigue kind of game, but if you don't have any kind of threat or any kind of way that you can go like, oh, if I succeed at this, I can get what I need to have happen, where are the stakes? And that's I think worth noting. And I always find the difficulty between like how many rules you've got versus how much fun it is, and that kind of idea of it's more like guidelines than actual rules is definitely something I tend to go for as well.
I'm actually really interested in playing that new Chaosium game that John Wick ran with I Speak Giant over PAX with the 10 dice pool sort of thing, and you tell me if you're successful mechanic. I didn't get to watch the whole game, but it looked really intriguing, and obviously pirate themed. That really tickles me. So,
like I sort of am like approaching like, because a lot of the times when I was running, when I wasn't running, I tend to do like a very narrative focused one where it's like I literally just, okay, we're just going to forget all of these mechanics exist because I'm not an engineer and I don't expect you to be either, and then like get on with the story. But anyone else who's ran it has got to be like, no, that's what the die says, that's what happens. And it's like, there are times in D&D where I felt like I was just playing a game of Mordheim, but in, Eberron, at least I got to play a shifter, rather than,
Having never played either Magic the Gathering or Mordheim, I don't really get the reference, so I've played nothing but Forgotten Realms 5e, plus a couple of one-shots. Because I grew up reading the Legacy of Dritz books before I even knew what D&D was.
Dritz is a very good time. Yeah.
Like, a lot of my, like, I've also got to like unpick a lot of my pre-punch background as well, because I'm like really into militaria and scrap gathering, and I sell it on a car boot sales, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm sort of in that. I'm always like can just sort of recognize when that's going on, as opposed to like that fluid storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it bleeds through into digital game designers, excuse me, digital game design as well as tabletop and dungeon management design.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a lot of those sorts of elements to consider when doing all of these sort of things. So, moving on to our first heavier question.
Oh, good. Now we...
Which we've both sort of introed into this topic, actually.
we're so good at this. Wow.
As a DM, what is your basic approach to telling a good story? For example, like, do you value your prep and try to guide the players more along the road that you've laid out? Or are you more improv-based and just hell to leather and wing it with whatever the players throw at you?
I'm going to give a shout out to Acegiac at ACEGIAK on Twitter and say prep is for squares. It's like, I don't like it.
That name sounds
Like-
familiar. I'm fairly sure I follow them.
Yeah, Ash McGowan.
Yeah.
She designed Oracle. Yeah, no, her praxis is very much prep is for squares, and I agree with it. Mostly because it's like, if I do prep, I find myself very inflexible and like going, no, I really want this to happen. And it's like, well, that to me, that's not fun.
Yeah.
That's like, I find my fun in the emergent events. And it's like, okay, I will do prep insofar as like, oh, that's a cool thing over there. I'll just throw that in the pot and see what happens. And lo and behold, it's like the last game I ran with Ardent with Call of Cthulhu. But a lot of that was just off the cuff. A lot of that was just like, okay, I'm just gonna like throw these assets in a blender, put these characters in. Here are the values for these pre-made character sheets. Ready, set, go. And amazingly, everyone got out alive. Not necessarily sane, but alive. So
Tell.
Yeah.
Well, not one death or...
Yeah.
I mean, like, the last haunting game I ran, like, I got tired of being too light keeper, and then just executed someone. Because like it was just an emergent event. It's an emergent event, so it's stayed within that, like, you know, that element of surprise. I like to just throw in. So yeah.
For sure. I guess to answer, like, so I started my GMing definitely in the off the cuff. I'm very off the cuff when it comes to how I've learned how to GM. But as I've kind of gone forward, learning a little bit more on how, like, because a lot of my good GMing I tend to reckon is from improv work, which I've done like kind of as an actor performer in kind of different games and stuff like that, and learned one of the probably the most important lessons I ever kind of learned about how to be a good GM is the yes and kind of dynamic. It's when in a like improv experience, you go like, oh, this is the thing, and they say it as truth, and then you pick it up and it's like, yes, and this as well, this is my truth. And that rolling on there is the essence of what I think is what makes D&D the best game you can actually play. Like,
I agree completely.
I mean, that to me, with like yes and, like, you actually have to put a stop on it, otherwise you get yes and a 50-foot platypus with a purple bill and brown fur attacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
but
you got to find a line.
Yeah,
you do have to guide it, but
yeah.
And I think it's the mark of a good GM who can really take that and kind of roll with it. I think as I've gotten on as well, that it gets to that kind of point where you're like, oh, this is a bit too much. That's when you have that prep, those hard things that you can say, these are the facts and these are the things and these are the stuff you can kind of do.
That's right.
And that's where I'm kind of at now. Yeah.
On that note, actually, a big shout out to Matt, who played The Haunting with Jade, and Zach from I Speak Giant, and the panel of theirs that I really need to go back and watch because I forgot about it.
Yep.
Literally about yes and improv for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. It's the good stuff.
Matt actually, I remember Matt's performance, like, with those dice rolls was just perfect. Because just as a case example, like for for just whoever may be watching this. Hilarious. Matt, like, he took a character, like, he had a temporary fit of amnesia because he, mechanics, that's what the dice determined. And it's like, I thought, you know what, this would actually be a really cool direction to take it in. Yoink. And then he took that and ran with it. And then, like, we had, like, he was, like, because of his amnesia, he was just tying up all these little jokes I left behind earlier.
Yeah.
And and then, like, just his comment at the end is like, I think we still got the haunting, like, just uploaded the haunting VOD.
It's on the YouTube now.
Yeah, it is. He just caps it off brilliantly, like, just the final punchline to the haunting. It was easily one of the most memorable ones I've ran.
Yeah, Matt is a lot of fun to DM for. I've DM'd for him twice, and I've played with him twice. The first time I DM'd for him, I'd also DM'd with Aram and Greg, who were in my PAX game as well. And Matt played the same character in both games, which was his kobold ranger riding a giant spider who talked like Matt Berry. And so in the first game, we went from Charlemagne, his giant spider, who got eaten by a gelatinous cube, and we ended up with his Axebeak. His Axebeak mount named Charlotte Crane. Which was my fault. Because I killed Charlemagne, and he said it's an Axebeak. And then in this game that we just played, he ended up with a giant lion, Charlemagne II. And then Aram, who has a hell of a lot of experience as both a GM and a player, because he runs God's Fall, Demigod's Fall, and Will It Roll, or is it Does It Roll?
Like the really complex systems,
And they just started doing a Call of Cthulhu show for Does It Roll. And so they're actually really interested in playing with us sometime. But Aram and Matt together in a game are pure chaos. And I am a GM who likes to prep. But I like to prep in a way that it means I'm prepared for pretty much anything. So I had random lingering injury tables over here and a disease table over here. And if they do this, here's 3 things that can happen. Because with my ADHD, I can lose my focus. So, but...
like, it's interesting you mentioned that, though. Like, sorry to cut you off. Is like, because I've got the... I'm on, like, a very similar but very distinct side of the spectrum. I have Asperger's syndrome, or autism spectrum disorder, as it's now known. So it's like I turn into a data sponge. That's part of the reason why I don't like prep, is because I've got all of this stuff in my head anyhow, and it's just rattling around. And it's like, mate, stop.
I've definitely had examples of that, just being like, a player of mine asked me, what is the taxation system of this, like, noble land? And I was like, it is this. And like, from my head came this entire, like, tax system of, like, a noble lord getting the taxes from this guy. And then that character made his stated character goal to overthrow this, like, lauded tax system, because it was a feudal... I don't know what to tell you, man. It's a feudal tax system. What are you going to do?
Overthrow it!
No, exactly. And that's what they did to me in this last one-shot. Like, I had to come up with a whole backstory for a magically possessed horse that liked to kick one particular town guard over and over and over again, and why it did that. And then, thanks to Aram, I ended up having a 5-minute conversation with him as a parrot beak from the Great Barrier Reef style fish with a Boston accent. And there's no way in the world I could have been prepared for that.
Yeah,
but it happened.
And I think it's a tricky one sometimes with D&D, because that is to some extent what some of the fun bits are. Like that, you wander off for a bit, you take that kind of one session of, like, random nonsense, and then you want to kind of come back to, like, something where you can put some stakes in it and be like, oh, I'm going to go fight the big bad guy in this, doomy tower, and here's all the stuff that's in the tower, and here's the special thing I know about this particular, like, location or area or whatever. And that's the eternal balance, I think. Yeah,
and that's it. Well, Joey the Fissuation was that messenger telling them where they could find the big bad.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And so it was Yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting trying to... Because it was 4 a.m. by that time for Aram, and like 6 o'clock for everybody else. So
Yep.
it was just madness, and we still needed to finish up this session in the next 20 minutes before the next panel was going to come on. And so you got to be prepared for that. So in that, leading into the next question, which carries on from this topic, is to aid your particular approach then, how do you prep your sessions?
I might handball this to Jacob first, because I actually do need time to think about it.
All right. So with my prep of sessions, I tend to do like a bit of a story beforehand, being like, okay, here's the location you're at. Here's what you're going to find in there. Here's what you're going to do in this. I kind of envision what I think the players might be doing and say, okay, knowing the players the way I do, because I tend to run my games like very much on a, okay, who are my players? What are they about? What do they do? I can take that and go, okay, so I know, for instance, say Trent. He's a player that plays me in the Ardent Roleplay stream that we do. He is a very impulsive character. He is more likely to be impulsive, but also be kind of considered in his approach to things. So if I present him with challenges that he can kind of take the reins on and potentially, you know, be a bit more composed in, that's something I can prep for and then say, this is where Trent shines. This is where Lillian shines, or Steph shines, and then kind of prep those kind of ideas beforehand. Prep an entire session, maybe around one character, the next session and now around another, and say, cool, I can present these things to people because there are obviously different players who will do different things. Some gather information together. Every book that they find, they're going to be like, oh yeah, what's in here? It's got some stuff. And if I give them a cipher, they'll be like, I am so ready for this cipher. I am going to take some time to do this cipher. And, you know, other people have maybe combat to do while the wizard sits in like the side room being like, oh man, this is everything I need. And, you know, that's kind of identifying what your players are going to enjoy and prepping for that is usually my general go-to.
Yes, I love that idea as well. I try to do that sort of a bit on the cuff at the end of each session when I'm playing an ongoing campaign with my players, because I just have the two usually, which is my partner Robin, who also is on the spectrum, but also has a co-diagnosis with ADHD. And I have ADHD, and then we've got our buddy Phil. Phil is very much a sort of strategy / combat oriented player, and he'll always try to do the thing that makes the most sense to get to the result. Robin simultaneously magically gets to the end result before anybody ever else does, no matter what game we're playing. If we're playing Hero Quest, they will somehow find the final room with the goal in it while everybody else is running around smashing boxes open trying to get treasure. But also takes the Steven Universe approach to problem solving. Robin,
I'm sorry, what?
Okay.
Please tell us more.
Yeah, like what?
I've never heard that particular approach to storytelling, actually, but I can.
If you haven't watched Steven Universe, they tend to mostly end up defeating the villains by befriending them.
Yeah.
And helping them solve their problem.
Yep.
If that doesn't work, then they'll punch them. So Robin, in our usual campaign, plays an 8-foot-tall half-orc barbarian from a loving family with the folk hero background.
Oh, so wholesome. I can feel it already.
So half-orc hero. Yeah,
Half-orc
she's
hero,
8 foot tall. She's got arms like this. She's got a magical flower crown that never dies. And carries a 6-foot-long warhammer.
Yep. I definitely love players like that because I think this comes back to that macabre thing we were talking about being a game designer, being like, I love a lot of the people I know and play games with are that kind of person. They'll always try to befriend diplomacy out of something, think around the problem, and I love and hate it so much.
Oh, yes. Tell me about it. I don't know if you've played it, Jacob, but Jade has the Lost Mines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not played Lost Mines of Fandelver. No, I actually haven't played too many like written adventures. Actually, I've tend to make my own. Yeah.
Well, the first major combat with Clark the Bugbear.
Yeah.
Okay, so Robin ended up mostly befriending the first set of wolves, And then in the final encounter with Clug the Bugbear, tried to convince him to sit down and play nice. So that didn't work. So they ended up pretty much chopping him in half with the Warhammer. And then hacked off his head, took it with them, and went to the other cave where Ymik was waiting with the captured Sildar Hallwinter, and rolled the head into the room before jumping in and bellowing to scare the crap out of them.
Jesus.
Later, when we're clearing out the Red Brand hideout, I end up having to improvise a session where they befriend the Nothic.
That happened in my session too.
They defeat the Nothic by teaching him the importance of consent and the value of a good cuddle. And give him a name. He's now named Kevin.
Okay.
I was all set for Kevin to try to eat them.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Hera is like, "Hey, little guy, would you like a hug?" You have to ask people before you hug them. And they ended up taking this little bullied goblin that was in this hideout, befriending him, setting him up as with a job back in the town as the errand boy. So he just delivers everyone's parcels and runs messages. And once a month, he takes a package of meat from the butcher up to Kevin in the hideout. And Kevin makes sure that no more bad guys can move into this abandoned mansion.
Yep. So there's a great example of that one. And one I tend to use is I present characters with the character that they can either love but definitely hate. So there was a great one. I was like, I'd use Untitled Roleplay with the mountaintop and that kind of stuff. And it's like the way there's a cart and that kind of stuff. They were going up in to like sort out some bandits and stuff like that, and they got attacked on the road, killed everyone. But there was one bandit who was the biggest, toughest looking like character you could imagine. Like built like a brick shithouse, had like the strong arms, the strong head, and the absolute like intelligence of probably a small dog. He was like, "Thug." And they like, "Hey, Thug, do you want to be our friend?" They use charm person, and he's like, "Oh, oh, okay." And they befriended Thug to the dismay of the wizard, whose idea it was to charm him in the first place. Was just like, it was like, "Oh, we should probably get rid of this guy." He's like, "Thug would like to come with you and be your friend. Thug thinks that nice lady is nice to him, and so he would like to stay with the nice lady." And to their dismay as well, they he was following along and showing them the way. They give him like, I think, a bit more intelligence, like by use of a spell. He gets just enough intelligence to realize how mean they are to him, but that he ultimately doesn't care. He's like, "Oh, I know you don't really like me, but I just like being around people who are somewhat nice to me. The other ones weren't very nice to me, and I liked that one." And they're like, "Oh, our feelings." And I was like, "I gotcha."
Yeah. It's a bit of a departure from, like, those two ways are a bit of a departure from what I do. Like, it's taken a while to actually get myself, put it into words, but going back to that, they're more like guidelines than actual rules. Like, I have these 3 guidelines that not necessarily prep, but things I keep in mind as the session's going out. Sometimes campaigns. The first one is Chekhov's gun. I tend to run my sessions very minimalistically, and it sometimes shows through in Ardent. It's like, if I don't have a reason to use it, I won't use it. I'm very opposed to Adam Kobol's philosophy of design, which is like, you got a tool chest, use everything in the tool chest. I'm like, I'm not going to use a ball peen hammer when I need a claw hammer, okay? The second thing is a bit esoteric, but this happened to me, is Buff McMeat Shield. So we had this a friend, one of their friends, so it was a friend of a friend situation, made this Pathfinder character called Buff McMeat Shield. Had 18 strength and 3 charisma, and was an intimidating brick of a human that could that had a two-handed axe, swung it with one hand, and had a what is it? No. Had a dinghy attached to his back to protect him from flanking attacks. Yeah.
Okay.
So in order to get that, the player, he asks the GM, it's like, okay, do I have what is it? Okay, I really want this character. The GM allows it with the yes and rule. It says, I'll allow it, but you speak in 3 word sentences or less. And if you speak over, I speak for you, and you're rolling an intimidation check. So, like, there's that element of chaos. Like, okay, cool. If you're going to do that, try and add an element of chaos so the content just makes itself. And the third rule, convincingly enough, is the element of surprise. Just, like, have surprise. Don't use everything in the tool chest, because that's where surprise is. It's like, that's the thing you can just throw out left field. Like, Call of Cthulhu is like, don't use that 1d10 table. Like, every time you have you go over that temporary insanity line, like, don't go 1d6. Oh, look, you're an amnesiac. It's like, don't do that. Like, yeah, they lose, like, 6 sanity points in one go. It's like, okay, like, can you justify it to yourself? Like, what would happen in that situation? Like, are they like a grizzled veteran, or are they like, like they've seen stuff and say the Somme? Yeah. It's like, okay, they're probably not going to get shocked out of their mind. They're probably just going to default straight to basic training and start skewering this thing. Or are they like, is this a morgue tech who's used to seeing like people chopped to pieces, and they see like a body on the ground? It's like, okay, oh, it's a crispy critter.
Yep.
It's like, have that element of surprise. It's like, just use and take and use tools as needed.
Yeah, no, I like that as well. Like, I like not just straight using the result that's on the table. Like, I had those guys roll for some stuff like that during the one shot. Greg actually, with his Cleve Urchin character, who was obsessed with he was a Steve Irwin analog in D&D.
Yep.
Was trying to capture one of these weird zombie magic evil undead squirrels, and it bit him. So I had him roll, and I took a note of what I got out of the roll, and I was going to start revealing to him as the game progressed that his vision was deteriorating as a result of the disease that he caught from the squirrel. Rather than just, hey, you rolled this, in 2 days your vision's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I like doing things like that. Like, I love Sewer Fever for that reason.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can roll on it and you know what symptoms they're going to get and in how many days. And you can just start revealing it to them rather than just, hey, you have this disease now. You can start surprising the player with, roll me a constitution check real quick. And then they lose their breakfast because they're starting to get sick.
Yeah.
To get some more breakfast.
I love doing that with what, lycanthropy in a Pathfinder game. It's like okay, it's like, just, can you roll me a quick willpower check? You're walking by a butcher, and it's like, got a 1. It's like, just started devouring fistfuls of raw meat. It's like, I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing this? And then she looks at me and goes, what have you done to me? And I just said, oh yeah, that wasn't a wolf that bit you.
I feel like, yeah, as a GM and a storyteller, you got to have that like precise chuckle, like the
oh yeah, no, I have that one, but I also have an actual involuntary higher pitched goblin giggle that if I get a roll for something really entertaining. And that happened at one point during that game, and all of these guys had played with me before except for Fletcher, and all 4 of them went, oh no. And you could just see, this was I think Fletcher's first ever live stream game, and his eyes just went,
I think to know about like the roles and how you kind of manage them is, I think it's specifically with D&D more than other systems, because other systems, like, you know, ebbs and flows when it comes to dark fantasy and all that kind of stuff. But with D&D, I feel like when you're running a game, you always want the players to feel like they're winning to some degree, until you need them to not feel that way.
Exactly.
You got to give them the ebb and flow, but ultimately, like, it's got to be for the progression of the story. If you just like, okay, you die, like, oh, why?
Yeah,
it's like,
no.
you fell,
Yeah.
rocks fell and you died. Like, oh, sorry, man. Like,
No.
Yeah, like I actually like to call that like when I like, as in like, you know, just a technique tool chest. I like to call that honeypot design, where it's like, okay, you just, it's like it's a bit different from carrot and stick, where it's like, you know, if you don't want them to do something, hit them with a stick, and then lead them with a carrot. If you want them to do something, honeypot design, as like in my own terminology, is like, okay, you just they've got a honeypot to it, and they just run, they make a beeline, and they get the sweet thing at the end, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you didn't see that, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. It's like, okay, cool, I'm just going to move this honeypot away until those are done. So they're always progressing. They're just at a point where it's like, okay, I can change the goalposts for complete like for, what is it, context reasons, where it's like, okay, cool, like, you got the chest, cool, how are you gonna open it? Yeah, do you have a rogue? Yes. Can your rogue use a lockpick? No. It's like, find a rogue who can use a lockpick. So like, some tech heads in the room will know exactly what I'm talking about, but for those who don't, it's basically like, if you're doing cybersecurity, the honeypot is the thing that you just stick out in the blinding open and expect hackers to just run straight into it. And it's like, yeah, but don't, if you're doing that over a campaign, try to space it out. Otherwise, like, players are just going to get sick and tired of it, and they're not going to do anything.
I think it's when you change that kind of like dynamic, when you're like, here's the honeypot. The honeypot's a trap. And once you present a honeypot enough times, and then there's one trap, they'll always assume it's a trap.
Yeah.
From then on, they're like, no, I'm not trusting you. I'm out of it.
I did that to some players in a Hero Quest game once. Just to make it a little more exciting and difficult for them, I turned 5 out of the 17 doors in this map into mimics.
Yep.
Yeah, like if it works the first few times, and then they get surprised, it's like, okay, you've set up a Skinner box there where they've gone like, oh, okay, some of them, it's like, okay, now we'll start checking. But if you do it on the first go, they'll expect everything's a trap, which is like,
the mimics were like in the middle of the dungeon, so it took them a while to find them, and then it was like one corridor was every second door was a mimic to herd them to a specific room.
It is interesting being the GM. You're supposed to not be trusted by your players to some extent. Like, they just can't trust you entirely. And there's all like, and that's why I talk about the maniacal laugh, because, you know, when you hear that maniacal laugh, or like when you're just like, like, what are you laughing at? I don't like this. We can't trust him.
yeah.
And
Like, that's a good way to stir up emotions, though I'm very much the GM where it's like, no, I want you to succeed. I want to be your friend. And then, like, you know, rocks fall, someone dies, and I go, oops.
Yeah. I remember the first game I really played, and it was like the first game I properly ran. I think for the best that I ran was a Pathfinder game, and I was playing with a bunch of new people, a bunch of new friends of mine who I just kind of invited over to play games with because I want to be better friends with them. That's how you make friends. That's how I make friends personally. It's like invite them to D&D, and that's the easiest way. And basically what I told them was like, look, and they were like really like worried that I was going to get them. And I was like, here's the thing. I am not evil. I am a chaotic neutral god. I am just here to see you do stuff. And that's what I want. I want you to do stuff and have a nice time, because that's interesting to me. If I don't, the rules, that's fine. Like, oh, good and evil, you doing the right thing. Whatever. Just have an interesting time, because that's what I want for you. I think that's what I think about. And when I talk about new players, that's how I tend to frame myself. You know, with all that sweet hubris of mine.
Yeah, like, I kind of take the not hubristic approach, where it's like, okay, no, I'm not a god. I'm just gonna sit back here and chronicle the events. It's like, you do you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, can you roll a this kind of check, please?
It's like, why? Why?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
I like varying between two types of laugh. There is the big evil laugh when something like huge and really entertaining, for me at least, is about to happen. But then when there's a little bit of a, oh, this is gonna make them sad, or this is gonna ruin their character's day for about 10 minutes. I don't even realize I'm doing it until I've just sort of gone, heh.
You gotta put the screws in them sometimes.
It's just one laugh. I'll be reading ahead and I'll be like,
yep.
Whoops.
And they hate that one. That's the one that makes them start panicking. Because they're like, I know this isn't going to kill me, but
it's going to hurt, though.
What's about to happen?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I mean, I replaced that kind of laugh with, like, I hate to reference a Disney film here, but like Captain America, where Tommy Lee Jones just goes like, "You don't win wars by playing nice, kid." And then, like, he just pulls the pin on a grenade and goes, "Grenade!" Throws it in, and just sees what happens. Like, that's what I do. Instead of, like, that... I do that laugh at the end of that.
I think friends of mine, like, they notice I'm too satisfied by something. So when I'm, like, using Ardent, I, like, press the button and I look really satisfied. And they're like, what? What? And they're kind of, like, scrambling with the cards to, like, figure out what, like, I've just shown someone. And they're like, I can't see anything. It's like, oh, I do. Like, what is it, man? It's like, you're not gonna like it. Like, yeah, and I think that's a really cool, like a really good one to as far as like note passing and that kind of Ardent kind of idea. Like, passing. Like, I remember the best game I ever played was the passing of notes the entire time. I remember passing someone a blank note. They looked at it. They looked at me, and they were like, God, I hate you. And they weren't allowed to show each other their own notes. And everyone asked them at the same time, what did it say? It's like, I can't tell you. Or like, at least it's like, oh, it's nothing. I'm like,
yeah,
gotcha. Gotcha. There's nothing on the piece of paper. It's like, yeah.
That actually sort of leads us into the next thing as well again. This is a really easy one. Very quick answer.
Oh my, yes!
Do you prefer a pre-written module that you can enhance and sink your teeth into, or do you prefer writing your own adventure?
Depends. This is where I say terms and conditions apply, see in store for details, authorized by the Australian government, Canberra. Yeah, like, this is, like, it depends. Like, if I don't have the appropriate chemistry, like, if I just, like, say I'm at ArcanaCon, Gen Con, Spiel, this is where I would say I would prefer a pre-read, or something that's like I've developed. It's like something I know I've got a loose sense of control over.
Yeah.
Like, there's a set end goal, there's set objectives. That way it's like, okay, cool. If I can just hit these beats, we'll see what happens. But if I'm very familiar with who I'm playing with, and I know the chemistry, like, well enough that I could basically predict a few moves ahead, that's when I'm happy to just, like, start my own adventure and just let it go. Like, so in those different scenarios, like, that's why it's like I'll always run the Haunting if I'm just going to show off, say, Ardent to, PAX crowd or a Spiel crowd or a Gen Con crowd. But if I was on, say, a Twitch stream and I had if I had my pick of cast and I was running Monster Hearts, then I'd just say, it's like, you know what? Go enjoy the lesbians in high school and Monster High School. Just go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's a tricky question, really, because, like, I definitely prefer making my own games and stories and stuff like that, but I recognize that pre-written campaigns are always going to have more detail than I'm ever going to really be able to put into a story. Like, I can spend hours and hours, like, writing an entire module with, characters and dungeons and maps and stuff like that. Maps, very hard to make, honestly, very hard. And I can spend all that time and effort in there, or I can have this nice pre-written campaign, which is really good, ready to go. So I definitely find with Ardent it's much better with a campaign that you're actually creating, and that's good for I think those longer term games where you can kind of really feed stuff out. You can kind of have these are the locations and stuff like that. These are the hard set things I can say. This is going to be here. This is going to be there. Oh, I can just do whatever in a session. But like yeah, I think there's that kind of balance that kind of Jade speaks about, like when you want to use them and who you're using them for.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it gets tricky to kind of figure out exactly which one you want. But, the freedom to do stuff is always ideal, really. It's what the game's about, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't write a lot yet because I'm still sort of... I only started in 2018 and I haven't actually played that much in that time. I reckon I've probably only played 6 months worth of D&D realistically in the last 2 years. So I still don't know a lot about the mechanics and stuff to trust myself writing an ongoing campaign. So I like the pre-written ones for the ease of settling everyone in, putting my own twist on it. But for next year, the majority of my stream games are going to be the same very specific, very special adventure that I'm writing myself. Because it's going to be built in a way that it will never be run the exact same way twice. So it will always be fresh and fun, and it will mess with every new group of players that comes through it. And that's something I'm really looking forward to testing on people.
Like, I actually kind of like the, like, it all goes back to Warhammer. I like the orc way of doing things, where it's like, it just works. Here's the thing, it just works. Like, kind of goes back to that, whereas, like, I, like, the very start, where I'm saying it's, like, I like being flexible as a GM, like, just don't use every tool in the chest.
Yeah.
Like, kind of goes back to that, orc way of thinking. It's like, okay, you just got slapped by a tentacle. It does this. It's like, I'm find like a lot of the time where it's like, okay, if the GM is presented as an authority, the player will just agree. It's like, okay, yes, that's fair, cool. Whereas, like, okay, if the player is very familiar with that system and expects the rules, that's when you'll run into issues. But if you're like saying, cool, you just got hit by an anti-tank round in Shadowrun, and you're a reedy troll. Your arm is now gone.
Yeah.
Like, sure. if that's the case, it's like they'll go, yes, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's like the thing as well. Like that logic that you apply to games and stuff like that. Sometimes you don't quite get that in some of the like pre-written campaigns because they assume logic. Whereas like if I go up to a guard and I tell him that I've just seen a murder happen, the guard's gonna be like, what? Like he's going to respond how you would imagine a guard to react. He's going to come and deal with it and get involved and ask me questions. But that's not assumed in most games. Like they're not like, oh, like we need to question you. Come in for questioning. They're gonna, like most party adventures going to be like, no, get out of my way. I got special things to do. And that's a tricky one to put into a game when it tells you this is the way it's supposed to be. That's why I do like that kind of more on-the-fly GMing when it comes to characterization, because it presents the world as I think logically it should kind of be. And that's when it also comes back into like the rules as written, like guidelines and actual rules, because no system is going to perfectly encapsulate exactly what can happen at every moment, because that system already exists. It's boring. It's great for some people, but it's also like I think there's the particular game session it's called. There's like heaps of these modules that kind of just get attached to it that give additional rules, and you can use one or none of them, or you can use one or all of them if you're feeling.
Maybe GURPS.
GURPS, that's the one. GURPS.
I've never played it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I think everyone's heard of GURPS at least once. But yeah.
GURPS is great if you just need a toolkit and you want to do like the world building. Like, if anyone's familiar with Malazan Books of the Fallen, Stephen Erickson and his mates just used GURPS to build the world, and then Stephen Erickson just like shoved a bunch of anthropology in, and then we have a book series.
Yeah,
like so it's GURPS is fantastic if you're just looking for that. Sort of like something I've picked up but hasn't necessarily been touched on is like find the setting that, like, if you're going to use a setting, GM what's right for you. Like, I can use Ardent to, like, I just used Ardent and like just kit bashed everything to like make this Wild West setting that like it was basically repurposed fantasy and Call of Cthulhu stuff. But it worked. The like the setting was right, the assets were right, the rule system was right. Now, if I tried doing that with D&D, it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna have to just invent gun mechanics. It's like, why in Death's name would I do that when Chaosium has so lovingly prepared me the mechanics I need? And it's the same with Monster Hearts. Like, why in Death's name would I have to like read up through 14 tomes of White Wolf publications when it's all in one convenient bundle? Thanks, Avery. It's like, just do that. Like, don't. It's not even. What is it? Don't work smarter, not harder. It's not even that. Just like, don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, that's why I like and am still sticking to 5e, particularly the Forgotten Realms stuff, because, as I said before, I grew up reading those books. So for me, getting a chance to dive in there and explore this world with my friends, oh, I love it.
I think quite a lot about like when you have a group of friends who at some point all players become GMs just a little bit, like some never do, but whatever. There's a nice thing that tends to happen in those kind of groups of people where they will have the book that they run and you can kind of rely on them to, like, Descent to Avernus, probably the best D&D 5e campaign I have read, because it's just, it hits the beats I want, and that's the one I'm like, I vibe this, I get this, I understand how to run it, and I'm going to run it for my friends probably for long times, as long as we play D&D 5e, which would probably be.
I'm looking forward to putting Robin and Phil through that adventure, actually.
It's very good. It gives a nice clear direction, says this is what you're doing, this is where you're going, and gives you just the right lot of breadcrumbs to go like, oh yeah, I want to keep doing this, and then you get to Avernus, you're like, cool. Yeah.
I'm
like, spoilers, by the way. Spoilers. That was you get to events. I'm sorry.
I'm planning to use it as a fucking halfway insert in Lost Mines of Phandelver, because when they cleared out that the red brand hideout and brought them back and figured out, that, oh no, there's a big castle full of orcs that's behind all of this. Where's the castle? We need to find out.
Cragmore Castle.
Robin found out, not by torturing the bugbear that they took prisoner, but by playing patty cake with him and talking to him about his hopes and dreams, and that the bugbear actually wanted to be a farmer and has always dreamt of having a pet abyssal chicken.
This is why I'm saying it's like, don't over prep. And why, like, press for squares, because it leads into that don't over prep situation. Like, and that's why I laughed at the name of Lost Mines of Phandelver. Was like, my GM at the time, lovely man by the name of Peter. Like, he was trying to get us to go to Cragmore Castle, and like that was like the only thing my group picked up. It was like the three of us were just going like, and like, okay, Cragmore Castle, we got it. And just to really hammer home that point, like, I think it was 20 odd times we heard Cragmore Castle, and it just turned into an in-group meme. Like, if we were going to do something we like just had to do, but like it was insistent, it just became as like, all right, we're off to Cragmore Castle. And yeah, that was it. It was just like that just became a group meme.
Yeah, and I love that too, when we get those sort of rotting jokes that come out of the games. Which,
and it's very like, just to kind of get that last running joke thing, like I reflect on this quite a lot, because D&D, and specifically with the kind of like, oh, how I make friends is by inviting them to D&D games. when you play a game of D&D with people, you will remember experiences you've never done within the context of, you know, this imaginary thing that you just kind of did. You will remember being at going towards the castle. Was it Castle Crag? Was it?
Yeah, Crackmore Castle.
Cragmore Castle. You'll always remember Cragmore Castle. You'll always associate Cragmore Castle whenever you hear it with those friends, and that's a very powerful thing. I think, like RPGs, like really have over everyone. Really, like.
I honestly just remember from that, like, it wasn't just Cragmore Castle that stuck. Like, what is it? That experience, like, what is it? Within Cragmore Castle, it's becoming a meme now here, damn it. Is like, my mate at the time, he was playing a druid who got high off some really hallucinogenic mushrooms, and he had a pet rock named Phil. And I had to hold that rock hostage to get him to calm down.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Well, on the note of you guys both preferring to create your own, ideally, how much do your players and their ideas influence the world that you weave when you're doing an ongoing campaign? Just a one shot, like. Ongoing story.
Yeah. So for me, I like legacy mechanics. Like, I'm all about it. What is it? Pandemic Legacy. I just it's one of those things where it just works. Like sometimes, like, what is it? There was I was doing a BattleTech inspired game where it's like, you know, they had, like, they were running their own mech lance. They were having the time of their lives. They were salvaging scrap and whatnot. And I just gave them a base to build. And they built a base in the, in the middle of, like right on the border of, like, what is it? Karita and Marek territory. So, like, they were constantly in a hotspot. And it's like, if they didn't like the laws of one area, they'll just swap to the laws of another one.
Nice.
And it just, like, it ran into so much trouble, but that was the stuff that they kept doing. And, like, because they had that base build up, it's like they just became a presence. And because they were flouting the laws on, like, both Marek and Karita, like, that eventually just came back to bite them on the ass. So they had to flee to Davian territory. So it's like those sorts of legacy mechanics where it's like, okay, cool. Just keep in mind, like, what they're doing. Just keep in mind, like, you know, what they're doing, what's in the house, and I find that's a really good way to prevent murder
hoboism.
Yeah.
Murder hoboism, really. It's,
like,
it's a rampant disease. We have those conclaves ready.
Yeah.
I think I've been a blessed DM because I have not had a murder hobo yet.
No, murder hobos, like, okay, to me, murder hobos are a symptom of a bad DM. Because, like, if someone is just creating a murder hobo, it's a symptom that the DM is either too controlling or too harsh. So it's like I don't run sessions where I have, you know, the lost Lenore, where it's like, you have someone you care about and she dies, or you have this long lost son and he gets executed. How do you like your feels? It's like, I'm like, that to me just gets murder hobos into my session, and it's like, great.
Yeah. But like murder hobism is a whole kind of thing, and I'm not going to try and get into a huge topic about that because I could talk about murder hobos for ages. Having engaged with a few of them, and then made some actually what I think is pretty good ones, but I definitely think it's to do with how you prep a character. I prep my characters, and when I prep my characters, they are set in stone. This is how they feel about things, what they do, and I think about how they think about everything. But when you're presenting a character to me as a GM, and if they are like, cool, I don't have any friends and family, I care about nothing, and I don't do anything, I'm only here for the hunt. I'm like, okay. That seems like a super fun character that you're going to have a really great time doing. Why don't you have this thing that you have? huh? One of the best games I ever played was with a son. Like I was playing Shadowrun, and my character had a kid, and his entire goal was to make sure his kid's life was okay. Same thing. He was like, "Oh, do you want to become a Shadowrunner, or do you want to work for the Megacorps?" And I was like, "Do the Megacorps pay?" It's like, "Yeah, they pay really good." I'm like, "Let's use that." And then he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And the rest of the pie was like, "Oh, but what do we want to be Shadowrunners?" I was like, "That's fine. You can do that. I'm going to get paid. You want to come with me?" He's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, man." Like, and yeah,
How very punk of you.
I know. Yeah, almost like. But yeah, that created a really good story, and that created a very interesting dynamic with my party and as a player. And I'm very determined to do things as a character. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. This is my goal. This is my stuff. Murder hobos don't really have that. They're like, I've lived a hard life. I've got this cool trench coat and this sweet ninja sword. Ninja swords are fucking sick. I'll tell you right now, they're incredible. But have more, like, be more than a pizza cutter with all edge, no point. Yeah, that's kind of the big one. I love.
I like that.
That is actually something I loved about Lido from I Speak Giant and Litovsky on Twitch. His character when he was on I Speak Giant, Midori the Red.
Ooh, delicious.
He was an elven paladin who worshipped Kami-sama.
Kami-sama? Oh, I feel like this is a weird thing I don't quite understand.
Master Roshi.
Oh, yes.
Or
good.
Or Kami and Piccolo.
Yeah.
Depending on the part of the translation that you're in. But it was basically Master Roshi.
Yeah.
And he wore red, like hastily painted red plate mail and had like a friggin' Sephiroth almost style katana.
Yeah. Oh, fucking field sword.
But it was an absolute...
No swearing.
It was just an absolute take on those sorts of characters played purely for the sake of comedy. He was very sensitive about his name, and he was like super weebish with his smite and everything when he could, purely for the comedy factor, instead of just going like, "No, I want to be a hardcore ninja with a sword." He's like, "No, my character wants to be a hardcore ninja with a sword, but he's actually a complete goofus."
Yeah. Those characters are good. They're the characters where, as Jacob says, is like all edge, no point. It's like
pizza cutter.
Oh no, I know the ones you mean, which is why this was such a breath of fresh air to me, because it was a complete
all the appearance
parody of that.
And this is where it's like I as a GM will I will turn around, like I don't want that anywhere near my stuff. So it's like I will give them like, all right, I'd say yep, sure, cool. The second they step off, I will like, and it's a long-standing campaign. It's like I will tell that player privately. It's like, you got 3 sessions, make a better character. And if it, like these kinds of munchkins always test me on this. It's like, okay, cool. You get ambushed by a gunman from the antagonist. Edge boy's dead.
Yeah, a harsh move for sure.
It's harsh, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like, this is a gangrenous pinky. I don't want to lose my hand. Cut it off.
I feel that. I think with Edgelord, like I think about like it being edgy, like because being edgy is a defense mechanism for like, I want to have a cool character and I want my character to be good. I want my character to win where I might not be able to. And the thing about good characters is that all good characters have weak points. There are moments in the character's dynamic that tell them like, oh, like I really care about, this person. I don't want to see them dead, so I'm doing this because I have to. Like I am a murder hobo because of this reason, and I don't like doing it. And that's all you really need to just change murder hobo to being like a good. They're doing it for a reason. They're doing something bad for a good reason. That changes the entire dynamic because they can be empathized with, and that's very hard to do because they just want to win.
Yeah, but therein defeats the purpose of like, murder hobo as the pejorative is like, okay, no, they're murder hobo by name only because, like, no, they can actually be empathized and reasoned with, as opposed to someone who just, like, who's basically there to power game.
Yeah. And power game is its own kind of thing. But I'll ask the question. I'll ask for the question just one more time because I need to refresh exactly what it was. I haven't answered.
How much do your players influence and their ideas influence the world that you write?
All right. So I tend to go with there are like the dynamic of a game for me is I'm the GM and I'm a character, but my character is the world. My players are also in that world and must affect me as I must affect them. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be moments in the story that have to happen that are for me as a character. While that is still the case, if the players interact with the world in a way that would actually properly change it, say they liberate a town, say they, dethrone a king or something like that, that has to have like a resounding reverberation in the rest of the world. That has to link on, and that's kind of hard to write for sure, but I think it's good to have those individual moments, like events that will happen and that they can then go, oh, what happened? Like, what's going on? And there's ways that they can avoid the worst of that, but there's also ways that they can make that even worse. That's I think a good way to look at those kind of preps or how the world will react to them.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Since I don't write my own stories too much ongoing yet, I haven't had a lot of that in my own things, but what my players do has impacted what happens to them sessions later. As far as
I think it's really
pre-written modules goes.
I think it as well, it also gives them a sense of that they actually have importance in the game. I think you lose if you don't feel that the game is important or you don't feel your character is important. You can run into that kind of similar issue with the being like a murder hobo, because there's no point to anything you're doing. So why put any care into what's happening? Like if you go into a town, you save someone from being attacked, and they are like, "Yeah, cool, thanks, bye." You're like, "Okay, I guess." Well, that's good that I helped them, but there's nothing that goes on after that. There's no lingering like, "Oh, like I feel really good about what I did." Make them feel good about things that they do, because that's
That's why I'm saying it's like murder hobos are a sign of a bad GM. Is like because either exactly that happens where it's like, okay, cool, there's no emotional reward out of it, or the exact opposite happens where it's like, okay, there's no, like, all of your emotional investments are destroyed for seemingly no reason other than drama, which is like, like it happens in life, get over it. Sure, you can make that argument. That's not, like, it's not engaging. I don't want to use the F word because, like, the F word is a bad word and never use it in game design. It's not engaging.
Yeah.
It's like, if you've got murder hobos...
That's fun for everyone watching as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That F word, don't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got murder hobos in either extreme, the problem is the GM.
Yeah. It's because of what they get rewarded with, I think.
Yeah.
It's what you get rewarded with is the thing. If you get rewarded with money, expect your players to seek out money. If you reward your players with good story, they will look for more good story.
Yeah, no, exactly right. But second to last question. For the sake of story, do you favor the roles or the situation that's happening in the game?
Screw it. Like cast it to the wind. The hero's journey and the 3-act plot. Like, throw it out.
No,
just
I mean dice.
No,
literally the dice.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Throw it. Like, throw those higher Western literary hegemonic attitudes out. Throw it out, because the dice are agents of chance. That's literally what they're there for, to represent chance. It's like, go with it. Like, the dice aren't the be all and end all. They're sort of, again, guidelines, not actual rules.
Yeah.
But go with it, because the dice will just say, it's like, maybe this is a good idea.
For me, I think dice in that kind of role in the situation, so like that. There is a great thing I tend to like, and especially in my games. Failure is where fun is. To fail is where you'll have the most fun out of everything you could possibly imagine. Having weak characters, characters with problems, situations that go incredibly badly for your character. That is the actual fun that you are having, but it doesn't always seem like that because of Bleed, because we care about our characters, and when we feel that kind of sense of care, and it kind of is like, oh, we don't like that. That's Bleed, and it's the thing that you tend to manage. But ultimately, like, whatever the dice say, like, go for it. Like, make it yours. Don't hate the game because like, oh, my character lost an arm. I've felt this before. I think it was when I was like really starting to get into games, we're all playing that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, my character's not very good. He lost a fight. I'll do a quick anecdote about my first character. He's a barbarian. It's in like D&D 2nd edition with like Thaco. Terrible. And I had to fight a bear. And bears, I'll tell you right now, as a first level character, are very hard to fight if you're only you. And I was like, oh, I'll like grab the bear's jaws and I'll try and whip it open and I'll punch it. My GM made me take damage because I hit I used the bear, like I tried to open the bear's jaws and it did damage to me. I was like, okay. Oh. And I lost that bear fight. I lost that bear fight so badly that like my father, the chief of my tribe, was like, you're not very good. Here, have this ruined pelt that you've like failed to do. And I'm like, I hate this.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't really I didn't play that game for too long. It was just the first character I ever played. Yeah. But later on, I realized that like the failure of a character can be really good because you just have to make it yours.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly, and that's it. I've seen like those are both really healthy approaches to it because I've seen too far either way in discussions before. Like, no, if the roles do something that I don't like, I completely ignore them, and I only focus on making sure that my players are happy at all times, and blah 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 blah, or whatever. Also,
that was something I wanted to bring up too. But, like, bad storytelling is customer service. It's like, like if you want to do customer service, get into retail.
Exactly.
There's a lot of really amazing impromptu improv theater companies you can just jump into that you'll have a great time, doing a great thing. But if you want to play some game, play some rules, have some stakes, you can do that probably. You should probably D&D is for you because it's something that you want to actually possibly fail at.
Yep.
Can't fail at acting.
Exactly.
Really, like. And just have fun. You can only have fun playing. You can only have fun acting. All right, Jade.
That's what.
I got some opinions there, but not the video for it.
and that's what I like about that as well, because on the other end of that coin, you have the people who are like, no matter what, the role rules, and that can lead to some really bad things for your group dynamic.
Yeah.
Like that's why I use a screen, because if I am about to have something completely catastrophic happen that's going to completely derail the story that my group is building on, or is just going to murder someone indiscriminately who's actually in the middle of something really fun and engaging and interesting, or running down a thread that I really want to tug on, I'll fudge that roll. Because if it makes the story better,
but the story is king.
If
that's where I'm actually a fan of shooting the shaggy dog. It's like, okay, it's
you had the explain these ones to me, I think.
Yeah, no, okay, so a shaggy dog story is like just a big build up, and then just it's a big build up, and you're expecting catharsis, and then something dumb happens and nothing happens after that.
Yep. Well, see,
and then shooting the shaggy dog, it just goes bad.
Yeah, I like those moments as well. But I don't like them if what I can see is going to happen is just going to, short sheet the bed. And the story's not going to go anywhere. And no one's going to have a good time. Especially if, it's a player whose character I really, really love and is going to bring so much to the story that we're telling.
Oh.
I don't want to eliminate that chance, because that's just going to enrich the experience for everyone. But I am totally not against, like, if I roll a nat 20 to chop somebody's freaking foot off, they're losing that foot.
Chopped. That foot getting chopped.
But if we're in the middle of this really engaging, interesting adventure, 3 sessions in, I know something absolutely amazing is going to happen, and I roll a nat 20, rocks fall, everybody dies, I don't roll a nat 20. I will scale that down a little bit and have something else devastating happen that's not going to ruin the story.
And I think that it's either way as well. Like, you can ramp stuff up and you can like simmer stuff down. I think there's certain like characters you want to like. Oh, this guy has been chopped real good, but he's still alive and he's still like kind of coming after the characters. Oh, I'm gonna give him a few extra hit points just so he can survive like 1 or 2 more hits and really freak him out. Like, oh shit, this guy is coming for us for sure. Yeah,
exactly the same. I actually, like, the first game I played with the same guys we were talking about earlier, I threw a monster at them and I actually had to scale it down like 60 HP because like it was devastating them. I don't know if either of you have seen James Intercrasso's Hag Malgams supplement.
Oh no,
but it's hags combined with celestial animals.
Yeah, that sounds pretty hard.
Yeah, so I threw a hagtopus at them, which was a sea hag combined with the celestial octopus.
It's Ursula, right?
It's Ursula.
Yeah, it was celestial octopus from the waist down and green sea hag from the waist
More
up.
Disney.
And they have 2 minds sharing the same body. They have the celestial being plus the hag, and depending on what's happening at the time and what the GM rolls, will be whether it does good things or bad things as well. And
this is where it's like a...
Yeah.
This is like... Sorry again to cut you off. This is where, again, I say it's like, you know, you've always got those players, like, you've got the rules lawyers who will nitpick this and correct you. The majority of players I find will like see the GM as an authority figure and go, oh, yes, that's good. Like, you know, it's like they're not going to question it.
Exactly. Almost every player I've ever had, except for where I needed help remembering something about the rules, has never questioned the way I do something because they trust me as their guide in this story.
When I started like DMing for the first time, I had like 2 rules lawyers help me out like with rules because I didn't read all the rules. I was like, this is probably fine. I was playing Pathfinder. Pathfinder's a lot of rules. And they're all very good. They can make a really deep combat and really deep character too. But and it was really valuable to have them around. But they also understood that ultimately the story was, you know, important to. Like, I was telling a good story, and they're like, "Oh, I'm having fun." I think the best advice I ever got about running games was, as long as everyone's having fun, you're doing a good job. Because I was like, specifically as in World of Darkness and a bunch of rules and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I've got to do it like this, and this. I'm like, Jacob, are they having fun? It's like, yeah. It's like, don't worry about it. It's fine. You don't have to do this kind of stuff. So
like, no, that's it.
If you want a 101 guide, okay, if you forget all the tutorial videos on, you know, how to run 5e, how do you run Shadowrun, how do you run World of Darkness, how do you do Monster Hearts or Blades in the Dark, forget all those tutorial videos. Like, there's an episode of If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, and the entire cast just sits down to play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I think it's 2nd edition. Like, you're going to get a complete 101 on what not to do as a GM, what kinds of players are actually really fun to play with, and which other characters just, like, they're immediate red flags. You get that within the span of less than an hour. Plus, you get a good comedy routine as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that actually leads us into the final question, which is both easy and a doozy. Because there is only one answer.
Oh boy.
Gosh. Oh, good. Oh, but that's easy.
You have to determine that answer.
Oh, it's easy.
What is the single favorite story moment from your gaming career so far?
Okay.
Top of the tops, the moment of story that you look back on with the most fondness time and time again.
Okay. So I was actually a player in this one, but I was playing. If anyone's familiar with Etten on what is it? Twitter. I don't remember the rest of his name, but Etten. He's doing. I just did writing. Hardwired Island. I was playing a prototype with him about trashy early 2000s web comics. The ones where it's like your dialogue's out of the text bubble and it's like really just cartoony and it's sort of just a little bit crappy, but it's good kind of trash.
Yeah.
I was the player in that, but we were kind of encouraged to just GM the events around us. And my absolute favorite moment was okay, I didn't feel like a trashy 2000s webcomic could be a trashy 2000s webcomic without a gay subplot. And so I was playing like that really dark gothy chick who might have done a little bit of evil on the side. So after I shot Peter Molyneux with a lightning gun, I ended up asking out the other, like the team happy chick, out on a date, and then it's like it just ended right there, like just a date off into the sunset at a gaming convention. It was like,
the catharsis, so good.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh, love that.
Yep.
Well, I will tell you about mine, but it is a very intense and very good time that I've definitely very enjoyed. So I was playing a game called Changing the Lost. It's a sub-game for World of Darkness, and it is brutal as hell. It basically frames a character in, you've had this terrible experience happen to you, and now you're dealing with this thing, and it's never good. All the characters are broken people.
Okay.
Enter Morty, a character who was part of an Autumn Courtier. He's an Autumn Courtier of basically fear, and he used fear to kind of protect himself from all the fear that he had felt in his life. He had sold his maturity to remove memories of his terrible time in Arcadia with his terrible keeper and all this kind of stuff. And there's a whole, rich tapestry of, oh, you're really like messed up. So he didn't have any maturity. He was basically like a child, and he'd walk around being like, oh, hello, I'm Morty, nice to meet you. Absolutely the most lovely individual you could probably meet. He tried his best to make friends and stuff like that. He was a bit of a lazy individual, and he had a friend called Squiddy who died in the first game. And this is the intro to this character's thing. He got taken away in a dream by basically a blackened monster and lost in the dreamscape. He went to court, met a bunch of friends, and became friends with them, and they got invited to their house. And he was like, what? You're going to let me come to you? Oh, okay. Had tea with them. They gave him a nice bed to sleep in, and they were super nice to him. He was like, oh, you're Morty's friends. This is really nice. And he was trying to find his friend. Then he lost someone, basically a very close friend of his that was of a similar kind of maturity. By they got lost, got captured by someone, turned into a bit of a goblin, and the court around him was like, oh, kill this person. And what? No, we can't do that. Played patty cake with them as they were executed. And this was the theme of his basic life. Friends he had, and because it was in a LARP, so it was a big kind of LARP game that was a bunch of different people, or a lot of different really rich characters, and he would see his friends just be killed. He was next to a friend of his as they got invited to go and find the Autumn artifact, which was a whole quest to try and give power back to people because they had been tortured and all this kind of stuff. And he was doing his best because he was very smart. He was a book changeling that he could learn a bunch of academia and all this kind of stuff. And they were like, oh, we're going to help you find this thing. Enter in. They kill this guy because he had a magical power that was just too powerful to be let around. He sees this happen, uses the power to basically revert time, warns him and then sees him die again. It was like, no, and like gets cast away. He had no combat on his sheet. He could not fight his way out of a wet paper bag if he tried. Like only like mental abilities, just like be like, oh, like I'm helping. It got to the end of this long, probably couple months of game, and he had finally found the autumn artifact, this special object that he could use to, do something. And he discovered that he could become a keeper, the things that basically take changelings to Arcadia to torture them and all this kind of stuff, and that he could save his friends, the only few he had left. I think he had 2 friends at this point left after an entire court of people. And he was like, I could save these people if I just put it back on. He drunk this kind of like his memories of his old past and remembered who he used to be, which was a terrible individual who in Arcadia turned people into books, like ripped out their minds and then wrote them into tomes. And he was so horrified when he escaped that he was like, I can't do that, and lived a life of simple, kindness. He became this again, but with a little bit of like, obviously his like Morty self, became effectively a god and tricked another one of these Arcadian creatures into a trap, stole his powers, and then won what was apparently called the game. And became, he had a free wish and or whatever. It was not super important, but he was safe and his friends were safe, but at the cost of his own life and his own sense of peace and freedom, because he became this archfey that just took all of his friends to Arcadia, the place they did not want to go, but where he now had to take them. But the catharsis of that entire experience was so overwhelming that I was like, this is, yep. And it took me about a week to just go, whew.
Mm-hmm. So it's Scarecrow who became Batman, basically.
Yes. Yes. It was very intense because a lot of the other characters have been quite mean to him, obviously killing his friends and stuff like that. Like, oh my God. But yeah, that's probably the big moment for me, I think, which is a lot of work and a lot of like time and energy spent on a particular task, information that I slowly got over the course of the game, and then eventually came to a conclusion that was like, oh, this is how I do it. That really resonated for me because it was a lot of trial and work to get the catharsis I wanted, and it taught me the important lesson of basically have a flawed character and make that what the fun is, because I had so much fun playing this character. He wasn't that good at stuff, but he was good at one thing. He was like, I'm helping. And incredible game, honestly.
And that is something I love about making a character as well. Is I like to optimize characters in the way of like, this character is this kind of person, which means they're good at this thing. They might not be good at anything else, but they are good at this thing. And I'm going to focus my stats around that thing, which leads to a lot of interesting plot points down the way when they might not get to do that thing for 6 months.
Yep.
So they've just got to go around trying to do their best.
It means you have to rely on people as well. Like,
yeah, you have to work with your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't like to be good at everything. Like, I've got one character who's an Eldritch Knight. So he is really good at fighting, and the magic that he chooses to use is only combat enhancement. So he can jump real high. He's got feather fall. He can cast fog to give himself cover. And he's got mage hand and shocking grasp. That's it.
It's a natural thing for people, I think, when they start playing a game like this to treat it like a game and to win that game. And the only way to win that game is to be good at everything. Have all your stats above 10, and like have all your stats of like, bonuses and everything, because that's the way to do it. But yeah, some of the best characters I've ever played. Yeah, like I remember I played a wizard that had like 8 wisdom, and he was just afraid. Yeah, he was a scared wizard. He was like, I was like, I don't want to fight. No. He was very smart. And he was like, no, I'm gonna get out of here. But yeah, like I think that's an important note.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Most of the times where that character has excelled at something has actually been out of combat because he just happens to be handsome and can play the flute.
Yeah,
magic flute.
So he's like, people like him.
Kind of like that's where I would actually say it's like a final parting piece of wisdom is that you should kind of treat your party like everyone else in your company. Because if you're running a one-person show, it's like, okay, cool. Like, if you can do everything, like, why are they there?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's like it's not fun.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, cool. You got, say, a programmer over here, you got an artist over here, and you got a chef over there. What can you do?
Yep.
And
That's
it's like,
exactly
make
it.
a restaurant.
As a player as well, passing what you can't do to another player that can do it is huge for that player as well. Like, it's a really big, like, gratifying moment to go like, oh, like, you wizard, what does the magic spell say? And it's like, oh yes, me, yes, here you go. And that's the kind of thing. It's like those ebbs and flows of like trial, challenge, catharsis, and then feeling like you know what to do in the situation, and giving that leverage to players to feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Like a varied party makes for good story. Like my party at the moment in my home game, we have a Frost Goliath barbarian who's a really good fighter and big and scary, but a really good, like, nice person. Not very charismatic. We've got what turns out to be a Fey shape changer of some sort, who is a magic user, has healing magic, and she's really sneaky, and has actually gotten us into a bit of trouble. And a few others in there. We've got a cleric and a wizard, and then we've got me. I'm a rogue who is not very tough, like 8 constitution. So for the start of the game, if I could get a shot off at someone, I would do a fair bit of damage. But if I got hit, that's it, I was out. But the best thing about it was that I put a lot of my points into charisma, so that I could lie my way out of every situation.
Yeah.
He lies and he lies and he lies and he lies and he lies, and sometimes he lies himself into trouble.
But that's so much fun as well. Like that's the thing. And, like compulsive liar as your character tagline is a great character to play.
Yeah.
And if you get involved in like I'm part of this. I get that you're a liar. That's so cool. I get it.
Exactly, and that's
fantastic.
His thing is all about being very charming, and he was a thief in Waterdeep until he stole from the wrong person and had to get out of there. And so the party uses him when we need to sneak into somewhere. But when it comes to battle time, we send Winter Sun front and center, swinging a hammer.
And I think that's one of the nice things I quite like about, like, obviously Ardent, just to bring it back to that kind of topic. Like, when you have like different characters have the ability to do different things, giving that information to someone that they can then use with whatever they would like is super interesting to examine at a table. It's very hard to do, but is definitely achievable. Like, if you do that kind of prep, and it's going to be hard to do that kind of prep.
Yeah, I'm
which
really
is where
looking forward
obviously
to that in the game that I've got coming up. I know I've got a halfling sorcerer and a human wizard so far. I don't know what the other 2 players are going to be, but I'm looking forward to messing around with that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. Well, that is all the questions I have prepared for today.
Nice. Well,
so I think that's been a really good talk, and there's a lot of stuff for people who are wanting to tell stories to think about. I recommend for new writers, if you want to plot a campaign, to check out the Take Off Your Pants story planner outline. It's really cool. It's just like a little form that you can fill in. Takes 15 minutes, and it gives you an idea of, this is my main character, which would in this case be your BBEG. This is their personality, this is their flaw, this is the main story beat, and it gives you a very bare bones skeleton of a story that you can do in 15 minutes, and then build a campaign out of it from there. I find that's a really handy tool. And I just backed on Kickstarter, actually, the new Deck of Stories 2.0.
Oh, yeah, I've heard the Deck of Stories, actually. It looks really good, yeah.
I went to buy one a while ago, but they'd sold out. And Jason did mention that they were planning something soon. And I saw the Kickstarter the other day, so I'm like, yes, thank you. And it's literally just a deck of cards with story hooks. And you can just shuffle it up, dip yourself out of hand, and go, that. Okay, here's a campaign. Let me write some stats.
Yep.
Oh.
And
Right.
there's a really easy ways to get started without having to rely on your own engine too much
Yep.
if you're new to writing.
Probably the thing I would say for new writers to think about is get out of your own head. Like, stop worrying about perfection. Stop worrying about doing the thing. It's like, cool. Like, all right. Just go with it. Like, if you like it, there's a guarantee that someone else in the world will like it.
Exactly.
Just, try to, don't take it into the domain of the weird and, socially unacceptable. Don't do that. Otherwise, like, just go with it. You will very easily find what flows.
Yeah.
Because humans learn a lot through just telling a story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Yep. Don't be afraid to have a crack at it, and just make stuff that you think is going to be fun to play. Don't worry about making other people happy. Just write something that you think is going to be fun to play, and players will find you.
And don't forget, like, just keep in mind when you're making that kind of thing, like, you're running a game, you should be having fun. If everyone's having fun, you're running a good game. And as long as that's kind of what you think about, you take feedback when you can get it, you'll eventually learn, like, kind of what makes you a storyteller, what storyteller you want to kind of be. And for me, that's being spooky as hell and, threatening when I can. But, that's what people can sometimes enjoy, as well as being occasionally wholesome and being like, here's the stuff that you're going to go, aw, and feel sad about. Because, I love putting emotions into games. Like, think about the emotions that you're going to invoke with people, and, don't sweat it not being the best at something, because, there's plenty of people who are going to be the best storytellers, and they're going to have all these kind of ways of doing things that you're not going to quite get just yet. But give it time, you'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Like, keep
The
looking
best
at this
form
kind
of horror
stuff.
comedy, though.
Yeah.
The best form of horror comedy is what is it? The rabbit from Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's harmless. It's just a
just a
little.
rabbit.
Oh no! Oh no!
Ridiculous.
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing with that module I'm writing right now, the Astia module. The most harmless, what people are going to assume the most harmless looking one is, it's only this big. It's the size of a Boston Terrier, and it's got a butt for a face. Players are going to laugh at that until you realize that there's 6 more of them, and they open up to just a sarlacc pit of teeth,
Oh, that's not good. That's
and
not
they
good
hunt
money.
in a pack. So
There's a reason humans have this reaction of like, I don't recognize it, kill it. It's like, it's for exactly those reasons. I didn't grow up with this. I don't know what this is. Kill it.
yeah, and don't be afraid to make yourself sad. You are gonna do that as a DM sometimes.
Yep.
Yep, you're gonna do something that you think is gonna make the players feel stuff, and you're gonna feel stuff. Like when I accidentally killed Charlemagne, the wolf spider, I was like, oh no! But then, like 2 minutes later, we got Charlotte Crane, and everyone was happy again.
Yep.
But yeah,
All right.
don't be afraid to roll the dice.
Emotions make memories.
And
Still wholesome. Oh,
yeah, and I think that's that for today. Hope everyone enjoyed it, and please do check out the rest of the content that we have available. Head over to Ardent on YouTube, Twitch, and ardentroleplay.com. And if you haven't already, download the Ardent Roleplay app and check it out. Jump into one of our streams and use the spectator view and check it out for yourself.
yeah.
We have been the Ardent Roleplay team, and we'll see you in the future.
See you then, team.
Bye.
I'm Jacob, one of the developers at Audacious, and I'm here to tell you about Ardent Roleplay, our augmented reality companion app for tabletop role-playing games. So we at Audacious design and create 3D models for tabletop games and bring an augmented reality to the table, showing locations, characters, interactable objects for the players to receive different information from their GM throughout a game session. It's free to download and sign up, so please feel free to do so while I take you through some of the basics here. Just search Ardent Roleplay in the App Store. Alright, so here we have our two main menus. The GM to the left and the player to the right. For the player app, we have a character in the middle of the screen, as well as a banner just below that tells you a little bit about the campaign and the session that you'll be playing next. Morgan is our starter character in the sample session. When you first install the app, or you can create your own character as part of any game you want to play, so we'll take you through that right now. As far as character creation, we keep it pretty simple. Select the characters here, create a new one, and then choose from a list of character models for race and player classes, which we offer, that you can expand with the player subscription. So we'll choose a dwarf fighter. Once you've selected what you're going to play, just give them a name. We'll say Edric Greyhammer. Like that there, we'll create that character now. Then let's give him a little bit of a different hue. Let's say we want to make him blue. Excellent. We'll save those changes there. So now that we have our character and we want to join a new game, just select the scroll and pen right here on the side of the banner there. We'll go change the campaign, and then we'll enter in an ID. Now, the GM will give you that ID. We'll have a look at the GM section over here. You click the little burger menu up the top left-hand corner. You'll then get the player code there. So we'll enter that in now. 154. Excellent. Now, once we have that in there, we'll click Join Campaign. We have a selection of characters we want to choose. We'll select our new character, Edric. Select. Then we're all ready to jump in. So once we get into the app, we have our camera, some buttons, and the menu with more actions and options, but no models just yet. So we use market-based AR, which basically means that we have an image that the app recognizes and shows whenever the GM has assigned something to that card. GMs are then able to send reveals when players succeed at a check or notice something that only they would be able to see. Examples like dwarf stone cunning or magical language, or even just as simple as a rogue who knows particular lockpicks and that sort of thing. So for that, we have our cards. So when using the app, you can look at a card with your camera to see the model. You get a top-down view, and possibly some text as additional information that the GM might have added to the actual scene. There's also a toggle setting that allows you to change from top-down view to side view, as well as a 3D view that you can record that shows you basically models that you've already seen to help track your progress. Let's quickly use the rotate view there. See? It's diagonal there. Beautiful. As for the 3D view, we have our available stages that have already been revealed to us by the GM. We'll select the gated passageways here. That is just a quick example of showing what it looks like in that particular view. Then change it back to the correct way. There you go. That's just our first example, the dungeon corridor. We also have things like a gold dragon as an example. And let's add that gold dragon, have some flaming breath. Another one might be a NPC. We might have some text for us to welcome us to our lovely quick start adventure here. That is the scroll, by the way, down the right-hand side there that you can then use if someone is giving you additional bits of information about a scene. Then we also have objects as well, like the amulet here. Now, once we kind of go into the basics of how you can kind of show simple scenes like this, then we take it a step further and look at how potentially magical objects might be incorporated into your campaign depending on what you want to kind of show off as part of Ardent. So an example here is that when we have this amulet here, examine it, might activate and be much more magical to, say, a wizard of some sort. As well, if we want to also reveal our various views, go into this little section here, just by the right of the 3D button, the little timed circle there. We can actually look at the card's history of what we've got. So we can have Undisturbed, the Awaken, and we can cycle through these things. With this, we're also able to play with miniatures online and send those players those models all across the world. So if there are any questions before you finish up, please feel free to add into the comments. But until then, I wish you the very best, and thanks for watching.